Hello and welcome to Poetically Inspiring Change. I'm Angela Braxton Johnson, a Black, fat, oldish, disabled sister poet and a woman of faith. This podcast is a creative space for intersectional healing, Black joy, and diet culture recovery. Please note that some episodes may touch on sensitive topics like trauma, mental health, or body image as I share my personal journey and stories. I approach these topics with care. Also, this is a body size inclusive, judgment free space. But should you feel uncomfortable, please take good care of yourself and come back to listen whenever you are ready. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's inspire change together, honey child.
Politically inspiring change. Poetically inspiring change for life, joy, peace in your body. Poetically inspiring.
Hey y'all,
change.
Angela Braxton Johnson here with Poetically Inspiring Change. And I'm so happy that you've joined me on my podcast today. Today's episode, I'm going to be talking about access to my energy is a privilege. For those of you who are listening, I'm wearing a t-shirt, and if you go to my socials, Poetically Inspiring Change, you'll see the t-shirt that I'm wearing. It's a black t-shirt, and it has a message in white print that says, access to my energy is a privilege. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I'm going to start this podcast. It's called Poetically Inspiring Change. Poetically Inspiring Change is a podcast. First of all, I am a Black, fat, oldish, disabled sister poet using poetry and stories for intersectional healing and diet culture recovery. Intersectional healing and diet culture recovery. So we'll be able to talk more about what that means and what that looks like. As far as intersectional healing, it just really speaks to the layers of discrimination that a lot of people deal with, especially people in black bodies or brown bodies, people in fat bodies, people in disabled bodies, and older bodies, and really young bodies. There's so many intersections. People in the LGBTQIA plus community. There's so many different lanes or intersections of whereby people are discriminated. So, and then when it comes to diet culture recovery, I think about the fact that none of us are untouched by diet culture. Many of us have been harmed by diet culture. Sometimes I've caused the harm unknowingly because it was a cycle. Like I was born into it. I didn't get to choose whether or not I wanted to be affected by diet culture. Much like patriarchy, and diet culture stems from that. It's rooted in white supremacy and that kind of, like, everybody should be a certain kind of way. So talking about energy and how access to it is important. It's a privilege, and not everybody can have my energy, just like not everybody should be able to have your energy, because we have a limited supply. We don't have unlimited energy. So this first poem I'm going to share is called Loving God, Loving Me. I feel so blessed. I am more than impressed at how God sends his message and gives me peace, sweet peace. His love and spirit flows through me. As I strive for success, I have had to confess for loving others more than self. For I had given my precious jewels and exerted exuberant energy, but then left none for me. My reserves had gone dry. In my joyful bliss of ignorance, I have rescued and carried that which was not mine to do. Then I was just too through, honey child. Not for a lack of desire, but for a lack of fire. I became restless and tired, and I needed to be inspired. But then my change came. Loving God, loving me. I began to feel more free to undress the mess and expose the stress of all the going, all the doing, all the running, all the showing, all of the FEAR, fear, false expectations appearing real, the facade of perfection, the facade of perfection by others and by me. But now I am free, loving God, loving me, loving my family and all those close to me, loving my community, my country, even loving my enemies. Perfect love from above. Now I can see, loving God, loving me. Snap, 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 snap. Y'all know when I say a poem, if you don't know, you'll learn now that I snap for myself, I cheer for myself. Yeah, loving God, loving me. So when I think about energy, I think about how energy is something that we need to be able to function. We need energy. The one of the definitions of energy, one of my favorite definitions, I'll share this one, is the strength of body or mind to do things. It's one of the most simple. Now, I thought it was I think it's kind of interesting that when you Google energy, or at least when I Googled energy, the first definition to me has had more to do with people doing. Like like here I'll just share what it says. Energy, the capacity or ability to do work. And I was like, energy has so much more to do with it has to do with everything. But why is that the first one that pops up on Google? Like that's the number one. It's to me that's crazy. Like we are we're humans. We're human beings, not human doings. So the one, an adequate or abundant amount of such power, ability to act, lead others, or have an effect on others, or have an effect. Period. Strength of body or mind to do things. I think that's just the most simple thing. So having the energy, having the strength, the mental energy, the spiritual energy, the physical energy to be able to do whatever it is that we need to do, to be able to be, energy. It's our bodies are requiring energy even for the things we can't control. Like my body is using energy as it pumps my blood and as my heart beats and as my lungs breathe in and out, and all the functions of in my body requires energy. So what are some ways that we get energy? By hydrating, drinking water. I have some tea, some yummy tea. It has just a little bit of raw honey. And the raw honey helps me because I have severe allergies. And the raw honey helps me have less allergies because it comes from it's local raw honey. So it helps my allergies actually quite a bit. And it just tastes yummy. Some tea. Some ginger lemon tea. So drinking is drinking water, tea, um, juices, anything like whatever. Well, not anything, but just drinking, especially water based things. I'm going to say that. Um, Eating, like feeding your body, like when your body That's one of the primary ways that we get energy is by feeding ourselves. And a lot of people don't have access. Some people don't have access to water or clean water, or there's people that don't have access to food or enough food to adequately give themselves the energy that their bodies need. Um, so those of us who have that, we're truly blessed. We're truly. I'm grateful for what I have because I didn't do anything to earn or deserve that. It's just a blessing. And if you don't have that, it's not something that you deserve either. Um, but those are some of the ways that our body gets energy. Spiritually, I get energy by plugging into a source. So if like I have lights around the room, those lights only work when I plug them into the wall. I mean, they can be the most beautiful lights, they can be the most expensive lights. It doesn't matter what kind of light, whether it's a Christmas light or um, a ring light or a lamp. It will only work if I plug it in, unless I have some kind of battery in it, in that light. So much like that, we need to be able to plug into, for me, plugging into source, my maker, my creator. As a woman of faith, I believe in God. You may or may not believe in God, but I believe in God, and I know that I didn't create myself. I know that, so for me, being able to plug into my source, plugging into God, like having time to pray and meditate and just be quiet and just breathe and listen. That's a way that I plug in and get a recharge. Also, think about like those batteries. So, you can buy the batteries, and some of them, after you use the batteries, after a while, they're just no good. But when you have those rechargeable batteries, you can use the batteries for a while, and then once they begin to die out, you can plug them in again, like plugging them in, and let them recharge. And they don't just usually just recharge over like right away. You have to have some time to recharge. To me, and that's giving those batteries also time to rest as they recharge. I believe our bodies are much like that, and that's in getting rest. And when we rest, it's a way of us, giving our bodies, letting everything just kind of slow down. Generally, if when we're sleeping, our heart rate slows down a little bit, the body gets quiet, and we can recharge and rest and wake up with more energy. So, also, there's things that you can do. Like, I like things that we can do that give us joy, that give us pleasure. Those things can also give us energy. Sometimes you can do things that you love, and that can also take a lot of energy. Like you might love, like I love to play tennis. Now, this left hand, I can't mess with the racket too much these days because my left shoulder is I'm not very happy these days. But on my right arm, I can still get some good swings in. Now, I'm not running for every ball like I used to as I'm leaning into 60. I'm not doing that, but I can still, playing, if I play a game of tennis or even ping pong, like just playing ping pong, going side to side, anything that where I'm active, I enjoy it, but it takes my energy. And afterwards, I need to rest. Resting is essential for the recharge. Also, I think about going to this poem. I referenced how in the poem how I had given my precious jewels and exerted exuberant energy, but then left none for me. My reserves had gone dry. And sometimes we can love on people so much, we can do so much for other people that we forget about ourselves. And that was me for years, for decades even. I didn't really understand what it meant to care for myself in a way, to love myself in a way that I put my self preservation my self-care first. I didn't know how to do that. I do that now, but for years I didn't. And at the time when I wrote this poem, honey child, when I tell you our lives were busy and overly busy, just out of balance busy. I just to give you an idea of what it was looking like around this time. I was working full time, doing social work. I'm married, so I was married, had 3 children, um, was working full time, and my husband was in school full time, and he was working full time. So that put a lot of the care of the children during the day, during the work week, Monday through Friday, the school week. A lot of the burden of that was on me. Not in a negative way kind of burden, but just, I had to do most of that because he was in school. He was at work, and then he was at school, or he was in school first and then he worked swing shift. So by the time he got off work, the children were usually in bed asleep. Also during that time, we were foster parents. So we had our 3 children. Then we also were caring for our nephew, one of our nephews. And then as a social worker, um, we were foster parents. So we were like they used to call it. We would get calls from what they called the E desk. It used to be back in the day. They called it the emergency desk or the E desk. So for we did like short term foster care. So for families, children that needed emergency placement, like something just happened in their family, the children could come and stay with us. And so, but at one point, we had children staying with us for a little while. So we had our 3, and then we had the 4 with our nephew. Then we had a family of 3 siblings, so 3 more children, and another family sibling group. They were at the time, there were 8 of them, or 7 of them, 7 or 8, 8. And we had 2 of them. So we had 9 children. This is all during the same time, y'all. And then my husband and I, so the household, there were 11 of us. And I think we were at that 11 in that household for some months, like maybe 2 or 3 months. And it was a long time. And we had one, one bathroom. That was a crazy time, y'all. Now we made it work. I still cooked. We didn't do a whole bunch of eating out. I cooked. I don't even know how I had the energy we're talking about to do all of those things. Still cooked. Um, my kids were in school. And at one point, well, anyway, I'll just talk about that. I would take the kids we were in walking distance to Peninsula Park. So I'd take them after school sometimes to Peninsula Park so they can do some of the activities. Kept the kids busy and involved. Had to be active with the state because they were the legal guardians at the time. I mean, it was just a lot to manage. 9 children. And I don't know what, at some point, what ended up happening is my energy ran out. And I didn't understand what was happening, but I actually became depressed. I didn't know that I was depressed because I just had no prior experience with dealing with depression. And a sister girl that I work with uh, recommended that I go see a therapist because I was just saying I was just always tired, like tired. And the church that I was going to, and a lot of churches at the time, didn't really promote therapy. And when, if you talked about therapy, the pastors would say, well, you don't need therapy, you got Jesus. But anyway, I went to therapy. That was even the mindset of my husband back then. If we don't need therapy, we got Jesus. Well, I had Jesus, but I needed more. And so I went to therapy, and the therapist did an assessment, And in the assessment, he asked all of these different questions. And at the end of that, he said, Angela, you're depressed. It was like a matter of fact thing. It wasn't like, I think, maybe. He was like, no, you're depressed. And I was like, how can I be depressed? Like, I'm not sad. Like, I didn't feel like I wasn't crying all the time. I didn't feel like I wanted to die or suicidal or like I I just I didn't understand how I could be depressed because I didn't really know what depression was. And come to find out that's what was I had run out of energy. I had no energy. I was depleted. I was not taking good care of myself. A lot of times I would go throughout the day. I had headaches oftentimes because I was probably dehydrated, not drinking enough water, not eating enough food, um, or eating too much food sometimes, but most of the time, a lot of the times I would go all day and then not eat until the end of the day. Like I just wasn't my whole day from the beginning to the end was taking care of everyone else around me. Also my mother was sick at the time. I had one of my close friends at the time was pregnant with our godson, and I was just pouring into a lot of people, and not always. I had some relationships where I got poured back into, but the majority I was pouring out. And after all of that pouring out, like I'm drinking tea right now, and it's really yummy. But if I were to pour out this tea, I could pour only like there's only so much that this cup can hold. And that's representative, like that kind of represents the energy. There's only so much we can hold. As we pour out, that energy needs to be replenished. We need to be refilled, refueled. And I wasn't getting that. So that was my first lesson about depression. During that time, my hair started falling out. I mean, it was a really hard time. Eventually, the family of three, they were able to be placed with other family members, and then the two children that we were doing foster care for, they got to go back with their grandmother at the time. And so things began to like balance out. My husband continued to do school for I think another year or so, but I had to learn how to care for myself. And I'll tell you that it was something that took time, because from my childhood up until that point, I was a parentified child. So as a parentified child, I took care of my baby sister. I helped take care of my mother when she got sick. My brother, he was pretty, he took care of himself for the most part, but I still cooked and did those kinds of things that helped the whole family. So being someone that, just the leader in me, I naturally cared for people because that's what I grew up doing. Thank you so much for listening in, for tuning in to my podcast. I'm so grateful that you're here. Again, I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear input. If I said anything that speaks to you, please let me know. Share in the comments. If it encourages you, or you know a sister friend or a brother or somebody that can be inspired by this, please share this with them. And if you even want to give me some constructive criticism, I'm here for that as well. I'd love for you to subscribe, to like, to follow, to share. And I hope to see you again on Poetically Inspiring Change. Bye, y'all. Mwah.
Poetically inspired.